and I am excited to be talking today with Joe Goitia, who I am not sure if we've met in person, but I feel like I've known him forever because he's from that area of the country, that Chicago area, that Illinois area, which has produced tons of top-notch JKD and Kali and associated discipline people over the years. But you tell me, Joe, have we met?
Honestly, I don't know if you ever been to you went to any of the Deckerberg Academy seminars with Guru Dan. Maybe at one of those, possibly in the 80s or 90s. Did you ever come to Chicago?
Wait, hang on, guys. I thought we had fixed all the issues. Just let me try to get his audio fixed here.
Okay.
Joe, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you perfect.
Yeah, but I don't hear you.
Oh. Okay.
Did he hear us before?
I think something happened to your audio feed.
I'm gonna.
All right. Sorry about this, folks. You know, it happens sometimes with technology. I when I logged on 15, well, now it's 40 minutes ago, all of a sudden my main line decides to go down. So that delayed us. And then Joe had a little bit of trouble connecting on his end. And we were fine audio-wise, but we had missed the time slot that the software was programmed for. So we had to backtrack and get out of that and just go live immediately. But then I lost him and the audio. So while we wait for Joe to come back in, hopefully with no tech problems whatsoever, later this evening, Salem Astley will be on. And most of you will know Salem as one of the top-notch boxe française people around. I think because he's the pioneer, he's very well known for that. But apparently some people, based on a comment that I got, some people are not aware that that Salem is a JKD guy as well. All right, so, okay. All right, you might have to rotate your camera, Joe.
Yeah,
Okay.
Oh.
Right.
I'm upside down.
Nope. Just 90 degrees. Okay.
Can
All
you
right.
hear me?
Yep. I got
Oh,
you
okay.
now.
All right.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, man. This
That's
is
okay.
and when it rains, it pours.
That's exactly.
So yeah. So listen, you do look like a military guy.
Yeah.
All right. Is that where you got your martial arts start, or are you like a
No,
typical kid that started in karate or something?
exactly. Well, actually, I started about 6 years old in judo,
Okay.
and because of the Green Hornet, and I think that's what we are. And then I was around 7 years old or 8 years old when Enter Dragon came out, and
Mhm.
I didn't know it was the same guy. That's the funny thing. I didn't know Bruce Lee. I didn't know Kato was the guy in Enter the Dragon.
Okay.
And then, but after that, that changed my life. Enter the Dragon. That's when just the whole world changed for me at that point. That's
How
what I
so?
knew. That's what I wanted to do. I was like, wherever this guy is doing, I want to be that guy. I want to do that. I think a lot of us were the same way. So
Yeah. Okay. So what was the first step that you took
my
towards that?
the first art I ever trained in was at a YMCA, and it was judo and karate. It was the gentleman there taught both.
Mhm.
Didn't stay there too long. I was little. I was about 6, I want to say, right around there. And I had cousins that were teaching me informally too. They were doing, one of them was doing judo, the other one was doing karate, and I would learn from them things here and there. And so that went on for a few years. And then about, I want to say about 8 years old is when I started doing Taekwondo and Hapkido.
Mhm.
And I stayed there for quite a few years with that.
Okay. So, but you, after being influenced by Bruce Lee,
Yes.
did you like seek out information on his stuff
Oh yeah.
specifically?
There was no one at that time that I knew of in Chicago that was doing it.
Mhm.
I was a little kid, so the only martial arts we had in our area was more or less Taekwondo and some karate schools, some kung fu schools too. At that time, that's what was kind of going on around in my area.
Yeah.
And at that age, if I was going to go somewhere, it'd be really hard because I'd have to get transportation, stuff like that.
Yeah. So you stayed in Taekwondo and Hapkido for a number of years,
Yes.
right? And then you went into the military?
Yeah. Well, the way it worked was this. When I was in Taekwondo, I got my black belt, I think around 14 years of age.
Okay.
I always was reading all the books on Jeet Kune Do and, Bruce Lee, anything that he put out, I was buying all of them, every magazine that it was ever on the shelf, I would get it. And that was my thing. I wanted to do Jeet Kune Do, but there was just no one around at that time that I knew of. So what was funny is, like, I got my black belt, then I started boxing at a Cornell Park in my area at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And because I knew that I was reading about Jeet Kune Do and I seen how Bruce Lee liked boxing. And so I was already kind of mixing martial arts at that time and trying to learn as much as I could. Plus, one of my Taekwondo instructors, he was a Korean gentleman, and he was heavy into boxing too. He was a bigger guy too, especially for a Korean man. He was a big guy. He was like 6'1", 200 something pounds, just a big guy, His Taekwondo, when he kicked almost like a Thai. And he had the spinning kicks of the Taekwondo people, but he loved boxing. He had 2 pairs of those Everlast gloves. I think, remember back from the late 70s, everybody would go to a store and buy. Yeah. And we would all put those gloves on and just beat the heck out of each other that way. Back then, the boxing was very crude. So once I got my black belt, I said, I really want to improve my hands. So I started doing the boxing, and then I want to say what basically happened was there was one of my neighbors. She lived across the street. Her boyfriend was in the military. He was a Marine, and she knew I was talking about going in the Marine Corps. And she asked me, she goes, "Joe, I heard you're in the martial arts." I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, my boyfriend's into martial arts, and he's a Marine." And she goes, "Do you want to meet him?" I said, of course. So I didn't get to meet him right away because he was stationed in California. So I got to talk to him on the phone. He goes, hey, I got a friend of mine in Indiana named Rich Lamrell. And he goes, Rich is a Jeet Kune Do colleague guy, and I'll talk to him about you. Mm-hmm. So it was at that time frame that I got on the phone, talked to Rich, and Rich graciously came down and came to the base one day. He came with this big sea bag that I guess Dan Rubalcaba gave to him, the guy I'm talking about, the Marine. And he's like pulling all these sticks out, and I'm like, what's this guy doing, man? He had literally a bolo knife. I mean, all kinds of weapons. And he's like, this is Kali and this is this. And I've been reading about it, but didn't really see it before the Filipino arts.
Right.
So he's asking me about my background. I was telling him, and he's like, let me see what you do. So, I'll move around, shadow boxing in the air and stuff. And he's like, all right, you got good form. You got this and that. So we became really good friends. And whenever he could, I think he's like 5 years older. So he was driving at the time. So he would come down and teach me whatever he could from the Jeet Kune Do and Kali. I think he was an apprentice at that time under Guru Dan, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. So he was my first initial, as far as Jeet Kune Do Kali, he was my first influence there, in that respect.
Right.
So.
Okay. And so then you go into the Marines. What's your martial art like? What aspect of the Marines called for martial art? And like, did you guys continue to train during your service time?
Oh yeah. I that's when I started going a lot to the Insano Academy, or the Kali Academy at that time. Mm-hmm. I went in 82 when I was 17, and that's when I got to actually meet Dan, and because he was stationed out there. Actually, it was two guys, Daniel Rubalcaba and Curtis Lawson. They were both in the Marine Corps, and I would go to their house and train with them after I got out of boot camp and out of my infantry training school. Okay. So he'd come and get me, we'd go train, and then that's when, I think it was right around late 82 late 82 was when we went on a Saturday afternoon to the Insano Academy, or the Kali Academy, I should say. And what's funny about that is the Deckerberg Academy, I went to 2 seminars under Guru Dan at the time before that. Yeah. And at that time, I was told that there was a waiting list to get into the Insano Academy, or the Kali Academy at the time. So I had a broken arm in the one seminar, and I remember he signed my cast, and I go, Mr. Insano, can I put my name on a waiting list? I heard there's a waiting list. And he's like, oh, just come and see me when you get out there, because I tell him to go in the Marine Corps next year or whatever. So I went with Daniel Rubalcaba to the Kali Academy at the time, and he goes, it was a Saturday, if I remember correctly. After class, Dan's walking, to the office or whatever, and I walked over there and I go, Mr. Insano, I don't know if you remember me. I was in Chicago, the guy with the broken hand. I'm a Marine now, and how long is the waiting list? And he's like, come in next week with, Dan and stuff. So I would come in, as a Marine, we're training a lot. So it wasn't as often as I would have liked to.
Okay.
Anytime I got a chance on a Saturday, I would go, or maybe a Wednesday night. So that's how I was going out there whenever I could. And then we got deployed overseas in 83. And then when I came back, I want to say, I think it was at the first Marina School, if I remember. And then I started going there a lot with another guy, David Gallegos, that I met in Oceanside, California, right by the Marine Camp Pendleton.
Okay. So the thing, when I was reading your bio, well, there was a couple of things, right? When I first went to your website, immediately I was looking at the postcards for the different programs and what have you, and I go, this is a professional setup, right? Because it reminded me of the kind of promotional materials that we use when I was running my school and what have you. So how long have you had your school?
This current school I've had, it's going on 11 years, and actually next month it'll be 11 years.
Okay. How long have you been, or is it a full-time gig for you? You
Yeah,
teach full-time?
that's all I do that, and I actually promote mixed martial arts events called
Okay.
Total Fight Challenge.
Okay. How long, so you were always full-time with
Yes.
the school?
Yeah, I went from Marine Corps straight to teaching martial arts.
Okay. So the other thing that's intriguing to me, right? And now that you've said your background, it kind of makes sense. The grappling has always featured in your martial art background, from
Yes.
judo to hapkido and what have you. So integrating grappling into everything else was never a big deal for you.
No,
It
never.
made sense, right?
Yes, this is the fight. Just before I got on here with you, I was talking to my friend that helped me get on because I'm a computer moron. So we were talking about, I started wrestling. I left that out when I was probably in fourth grade. I was wrestling in grammar school and then in high school, and then was boxing. I was trying to do all the things that I was reading about where Bruce Lee was combining different arts, and I couldn't get Jeet Kune Do, so I was like, let me do the next best thing, which is let's put these things together. And at that, in my mind, that was doing Jeet Kune Do. I was trying to do Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
So doing the grappling wasn't foreign to me because I wrestled in grammar school and some high school, and I boxed at taekwondo, hapkido, judo. So yeah, I did have the grappling background. And then I want to say it was right around 85, 86, right before I got out of the Marine Corps, is when I start seeing the Shuto at the Insano Academy.
Right.
And I started learning some of the Shuto, the submissions and things like that, but not a lot, but got some of that from there. And then got a Marine Corps, came home, opened a school, probably around 1986 or so. And then was teaching and training, things like that. And then I was training more. We had a lot of kickboxing events here in Chicago at the time. So I was concentrating a lot on kickboxing and the Jeet Kune Do. And so the grappling was there, but not as much until about 88, 89, where it really started picking up steam. And I want to say what happened with me was I got to meet Paul Vunak. I met him actually at the Insano Academy years before, but briefly. Then I met him at a seminar that he was giving here in Chicago. And I don't know if maybe it was the second seminar that he did in Chicago, where I heard him talking about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu because he was training with them.
Right.
So I asked, and I said, like, hey, I've been hearing about this art. And during the seminar, I go, can you show us some of this? And he goes, I was waiting for somebody to ask about that. So he did. He was like showing us like mount and guard. And now I was telling my buddy earlier, one of the things about jiu-jitsu, I didn't, you're at a certain time, you're immature. And I didn't like the idea of guard and stuff. I was a wrestler. I want to be on top and dominating. But when I realized that you could fight off of your back, even as a smaller person against a bigger guy, and still be able to win a fight or even stalemate a fight so you're not getting hurt, that's when I changed my mind. I started saying, hey, you got to get past the stupid stuff in your head, and you got to start looking at it's an effective martial art, and that's all that counts to me. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When you went into the Marines, was there a great emphasis on martial art training then, or was that looked on as like extracurricular?
Yeah, it was more extracurricular. I obviously was always into martial arts, so I seeked it out. But then there was a lot of us in the Marine Corps that had martial art background or boxing or wrestling. Right. So a lot of the Marines, like on our off time, we would all get together at special services and train and share different things. And you'd see a Shotokan guy teaching you some stuff from their art. I would teach what I learned. The wrestlers that were there, the judo guys. So it was a really nice melting pot of different people. Yeah. And what was really cool was that everybody was really giving. Everybody wanted to show, hey, this is why we do this. So we learned a lot from each other if you kept your mouth shut and listened. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. If you kept your mouth shut and listened, you would learn a lot. And that was the thing. I was really grateful that we had a lot of good guys there. And being Marines, we train hard. The training was pretty tough. One of my friends, he became a world kickboxing champion later, Ronnie De Leon. We used to train almost every day. Beat the snot out of each other whenever chance we got, sparring and everything. So my background was always boxing, kickboxing, martial arts period. I've been on the competitive side,
right,
the teaching side, the promoter side, everything. So,
and the Marines have like their own like internal competitions, like boxing and wrestling competitions and what have you.
Yes, they do. Really? I won the 7th Marine boxing title. I also won the Camp Pendleton kickboxing title at 147 pounds at the time. And being Marines, we would always get invited to go to Tijuana, Mexico, which is about 55 miles south from where we were at Pendleton. Mm-hmm. And we would actually compete sometimes in boxing events in Mexico. So actually, I competed in boxing as a pro after, towards the end of my Marine Corps tour, I started doing some pro fights in Mexico. So,
right. Have you ever had a conversation about your experiences boxing in Mexico and then your military melting pot? Have you ever had that conversation with Dan Inosanto?
Not really.
No?
I was really young when I went to Marine Corps. I was 17.
Yeah.
I was starstruck by him at the time. Whenever I would see him, I just kind of would kind of go in the corner. And, being a younger guy there at the time, and you see all these guys are there all the time. I wasn't there as much as I really wish I could have been. Yeah. So you see all the guys, I just kept my mouth shut and just would do whatever. And I was telling, again, Pat a little while ago about a story. It was right around 85, 86. And it was at the Marina School at the time. And I remember Chris Kent and Dan were standing by the Congo drum. And I was sparring with some people. And then, I'm doing my thing. I was boxing in Marine Corps. I was professionally boxing too. So, I'm doing my thing in there. And I don't know if it was Guru Dan or Chris Kent that said it, but they go, that kid can box. And my head went, and as soon as they said that, the person I was sparring with went, pop, 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 and I was like, oh man, and that like brought me back to reality again. And so, I never really talked to Dan like that. I think I spoke to him more at seminars than I actually did.
Right.
I was just intimidated by his presence.
If you ever because I'm listening to you, and it sounds very similar to the description of Armed Forces life that he describes. In his book. It sounds very, very similar. So I think you guys would have a great conversation about that. And are you still involved in teaching the military today?
No, not anymore. I was for a while, and I would do things with them and everything. And what happened was when the Marine Corps started the Marine Corps martial art program, they stopped bringing in people to like contract people. They stopped doing that, and they just went strictly with the McMap program that they use now. But before that, I knew it too. I knew as soon as that happened, like that's going to be it for those of us that go out to get called in to teach. We're not going to be doing that anymore, and that's exactly what happened. So,
can you tell me a little bit about that MMAP? Like what's the structure? Like was it influenced heavily by the BJJ and all that and the UFC?
It is. What the McMap program is basically it's MMA based. You'll see some Kali in there, basic Kali. You see some Krav Maga. Mm-hmm. You see some elements from different martial arts, and it's a pretty good program. It's a good introduction, I should say. Mm-hmm. For people. And as Marines, a lot of times you don't have all the time to train it as a martial art as far as during your Marine Corps time when you're training as a Marine. So most of your training, if you're going to do martial arts, is when you're on liberty. When you're not doing Marine stuff. So
what you've probably been asked this thousands of times, but the military experience, how does that factor into your being a coach now, you're being a professional instructor? How do you use that
Big time.
experience?
A
Yeah.
lot. That's a big thing for me. See, what people don't understand is I was an infantry Marine, and it's basically a combat Marine. The things that you do there, combat is combat, whether it be with a weapon or empty hands. Combat is combat. So
Mhm.
you learn lessons through training as a Marine for combat, and you can apply a lot of those things to your martial art training. If you're smart about it, you should, and especially if you're looking for that realism in your training.
Right.
In the Marine Corps, like we would train like if we got ambushed, and we would do what we call immediate action drills. So I have a thing in my gym where that's exactly what we do. We train against when somebody grabs you suddenly or tries to sucker punch you, because that's an ambush. That's still an ambush. So we refer to that as immediate action drills. So we work, and that's usually going to be in mid-range when that's something like that will usually happen. So I treat it as such, and so we train what I call immediate action drills, very similar to the Marine Corps. Very simple, very direct, very violent, and try to take that person down or take them out or whatever it may be. So,
Right. So and that would be the intense self-defense system.
Yeah, and the intense defense system is basic my Jeet Kune Do philosophy. One of the reasons I gave it that name was out of respect for Jeet Kune Do. There was that time where we all know some of the infighting between the original and the whatever, and I think both sides have a lot of arguments, that really good arguments, and I'm kind of that mid-road guy. I still believe in learning other arts and things like that, but I love the original method too, and still teach a lot of that. I think it's really important, especially saying if we're Jeet Kune Do people, you should understand the original system or the original material that Bruce was teaching. So
yeah, but you used the name. So instead of referring to it as Jeet Kune Do, you just called it intense
defense systems. Intense defense systems. Yeah, and I still use it. And what happened was I've had Chris Kent to my school, I think twice, maybe 3 times. But the first time I brought him out to Chicago at my gym, he I want to say it was about 15 years ago, maybe give or take.
Yeah.
And he seen my schedule and he looked at it and he didn't see Jeet Kune Do on there. And he's looking at my schedule. He's looking at me and says, "Hey Joe, there's no Jeet Kune Do on there." I go, "Chris, I took the Jeet Kune Do name off because I just felt funny about using the name." And he's like, "Oh no, man." He's like, I think you should use the name. So I'm like, okay. And then so that's when I started kind of reverting back. I stopped using the name a lot out of respect, more so. So then I started using the name, but I still use both. So what I try and do now is I'll have the one class where I do more of the original method in that class. And then in the other class where I do more of the intense defense is where we use the blend. We do more of the incorporating other arts, things like that.
Yeah, I think that you may have been subconsciously influenced by the old school idea that Jeet Kune Do, we don't even talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because Daniel Lee taught Tai Chi as far as we know. His whole banner was Tai Chi because he didn't talk about the Jeet Kune Do aspect. If you were talking about it, then you didn't really get it, Yeah. So I think, you might have been subconsciously influenced by that mentality.
Oh, without doubt. It's true. I felt guilty in a lot of ways, even using the name Jeet Kune Do. I was like, man, should I do this? Because there was a lot of arguing I don't say arguing, but there's just a lot of I was trying to avoid all that. I just said, I want to do my thing.
Right.
I want to be free to create and do and explore different things if I want to. And that was why I did what I did. And I'm happy about it. But I get back to Chris Kent. The first time he came to my gym. This is when he finished the seminar. This is what he said. He looked right at me and goes, he looked at me, but he, you know, he's talking to my student, but he looked right at me and goes, Joe, this is your, how do you phrase it? This is your blessing or this is your curse, Jeet Kune Do. And he goes, well, you got to live with it. And I'm like, and I was like, boom. I'm like, wow, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm just like, hey, you know, and coming from somebody like him, that's flattering. You know, I mean, Chris is a Jeet Kune Do legend, you know, I mean,
Oh yeah.
You know, he's the man, you know, he's got so much knowledge, and he's got both worlds. He's got that, the time frame of Bruce Lee, and then he's got the things after that. He gets it. He just really, he's definitely a Jeet Kune Do senior. You know,
he put a thing up on Facebook just a couple of days ago, and I told him, I go, look, man, the level of your writing, and then the discussions, the high quality discussions that come out of what he has written. I go, that to me is the standard, or should be the standard, for all of the Jeet Kune Do talk online.
Yes.
You know, because Chris, man, one day I hope to write the way he does, you know, and then on my JKD page have people who are only interested in high level discussion, not this sometimes sheer stupidity.
Yeah.
You know, which I know you stay away from, and good for you, because right, it's just ridiculous. So I wanted to ask you then about because this was another thing that put me in mind of when I ran my school, the fitness classes. So this is all your boxing and kickboxing stuff for non-competition, correct?
Exactly. Yes. We have the either boxing or kickboxing for fitness. However, I use that as my beginner, and they have to go to that class for at least 3 to 4 months before they can then jump into the intensive fence or the Jeet Kune Do. And the reason is, I find that I know they have a level of conditioning.
Right.
They know
that's very smart.
Across a hook.
That's very smart. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I use that as my feeder.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the thing, because then I have my competitive Thai boxing or kickboxing class, and then I have the Jeet Kune Do. Right. Some of them from there, they go, well, I really want to go to competitive side. And then they go that route. And then there's the other people that are like, you know, I really want to go more trained for self-preservation, self-defense. So they go to Jeet Kune Do. And then there's the people that do both. But usually age depends on how you see that. Right. You get a lot of younger guys that want to compete. And I get it. I competed for so many years, and you got to get that out of your system. Yeah. And they want to box. They want to kickbox. You know, and older guys, you don't like to get punched in the face anymore. I don't like to, you know. And, you know, so, but back, you know, those guys their body can take that. Where I think as we get older, we're looking more to fight smarter, not harder. And, you know, that to me, I think, is really important. So
well, if you're old and fat like me, not in shape like you, you're not looking to fight at all, right? Well, fight smart. It's like, don't fight at all. But people can stay in the fitness class if they want, right?
Sure.
If they want to do anything but that.
We have people that stay there, and they've been doing that for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years now, and they love it. The reason is, even in that class, I still sneak certain moves and things. I sneak it in there, you know, and they're like, oh, you know, so, and it's not the traditional kickboxing class where they're just, you know, punching in the air. They're really doing some hardcore bag work. They're doing hardcore calisthenics. They're actually drilling defense too. It's not just kind of just hitting the bag for 45 minutes and then, okay, go home. They're actually learning strategy, technique. It lacks that sparring aspect that we do in the other class. You know, so.
Right. but the technical base is solid.
Yes, the technical base is solid. That's because we get guys from other schools or other gyms, I should say, that come and they say, wow, I thought that this kickboxing conditioning class was going to be like how they've seen it other places. And they go, it wasn't going to be real kickboxing.
Right. Where those other places where they don't even focus on proper form.
No.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. At our gym, you're everything's being you're jabbing, you're protecting your jaw. They're learning all of that at the same time.
Why do you think the people who sell the kickboxing fitness franchises, they seem to have this idea that the students are not interested in proper form, they just want to sweat? Do you agree with that? You don't agree with that?
I do, and I think the reason for that is a lot of these, especially it's a franchise, they're getting a lot of people that go to a weekend seminar and learn this, and then they throw them in to teach classes. It's different when you have a school like what we do, where you have the main guy, he's there, he's supervising. It's a martial arts school.
Right.
You're learning martial arts. That's a big difference. Where you go to one of those gyms that and I'm not trying to criticize any gym, but you go to a gym and you go for what you're going to do. If you're there to burn calories and just hit the bag and do whatever, you're probably going to be happier at one of those other gyms. My place, we're going to be a little more stickler about, hey, no, don't, when you throw your hook, don't drop your right hand over here or whatever. We're going to tell you. And I think 99% of the people like that we correct them. We're not just letting them flail their arms in the air and everything. And we're like, hey, no, do this the right way. Because a lot of them have come from other places and they're like, hey, this is realistic. And so, but again, some of them stay in that class. And then there's the ones that go in the other class and say, hey, I want to get hit and I want to hit somebody and I want to feel this for real. So
do you ever have anybody who resists your method in that, well, you start here and from here you can transition? Like, does anybody ever say, nah, I want to get to the real stuff?
All the time. That's
how do you handle that?
Once a month, at least once a month.
How do you handle that?
And what we try and do is this. We tell everybody when they sign up, they're like, listen, you got to come to this class first for a while. You got to come for at least this amount of months. And then you'll see them walk in one day and, to the class. And I'm like, okay, you're here. You're going to do it. So we never ever would try to hurt anybody, but we'll put them in there with somebody and they go, okay, this is a sparring class. There's going to be sparring. You have to understand. And I'll tell the guys, never hurt anybody, but they got to know why we asked them to wait a little while. And then usually that will wake them up and they go, you know what, maybe I got to wait another month or two before I should be jumping into this. Mm-hmm. So again, never to hurt anybody. I don't think we've even ever given somebody a bloody nose on purpose. We never would do that. But at the same time, they got to know, hey, I got to wait my time. I need to learn this, and this before I do this.
Right.
So,
yeah. Okay. Now, tell me about the Vunax, how you got involved with Paul, because you'd met him earlier before.
Yeah, I seen him at the Insano Academy years back, or the Kali Academy, I should say. I didn't get to really know him at that time. I got to know him more after the when I came back to Chicago. And I was like, I want to say right around 87, 88. He did a seminar. He was doing a lot of seminars in Chicagoland area. I don't remember the first few where who actually brought him in.
Right.
Where I really got to meet him and talk to him was at it was in further outside of Chicago, north of Chicago, at Glenn Dom's Academy, and he had a strictly instructor training thing. It was like 5 or 6 people. That was it, and that's when I really got to meet Paul and talk to him. And then he told me, he goes, "Hey Joe," at the end of the seminar, he goes, "I want you to represent me." And I went, "Whoa, okay." And he goes, "I want you to be one of my guys." He goes, "You get it. you move good, you're really,
Right.
you get it. And so I'm like, all right, cool. So that's kind of how I hooked up with Paul. Then, like I said, he was coming to Chicago quite a bit back then. And then I went out to California to train with him, I don't know, 4 or 5 times at that time. So there was that back and forth going on at that point. So plus,
what was the attractive factor?
I liked his simplicity. I liked Paul. I think I want to say I met him before he started training the SEAL teams, SEAL Team 6. I met him before that, but one of the things he said that he liked about me is because of my military background. He's like, he goes, you Marines, you Marine SEALs, you guys got that thing about you guys, and he's like, he goes, I love that part of you. You're tough. He goes, you take punishment. He goes, I can do anything with you when you're going to do it. And so that's kind of how it was, and so I just liked the way he presented it. I liked to, at the time, I liked how he, it was very raw, very, very brutal, almost the way Paul taught at that time. Mm-hmm. And I like the way that he broke certain things down. Like now he calls it the rat system or whatever, but I liked how he had the stages because it gave you a way to put these different things in an area, and kind of like an area study. You can say, okay, this is why at this range you're doing this, at this range. And I think I like that a lot about how he presented his martial art.
Yeah. All right. Now, I would say a guy whose name appears in your bio is at the other personality end of the spectrum from Paul Vunak, and that's Ted Lukai.
Oh man, it's true.
So explain that to me.
This is how I explain it. You got the angel over here, and you got the devil over here, and you know which one is which. And I'm like, well, but the thing is, they loved each other. They, Ted and Paul, they loved each other. They were really good. They were really good with each other. They had nothing but great things to talk about with each other. Paul had a camp in the Sierra Mountains or whatever years back, and Ted was around there. I was at the camp, and then Ted came by, and we were all hanging out, talking for a little while and everything. So, but it's amazing. The two couldn't be more different in so many ways, but they were actually really, really good with each other. So,
right. Yeah. So what did you get from Guru Ted, and what do you use today that you got from him?
Guru Ted was amazing Kali guy. His dad was obviously a legend on Kali, and I got to train with him too. I'll tell you a little bit about that. Ted was just such a nice person. When you have certain people, he was just a good human being, man. He was such a nice man, and he actually would stay in Chicago. It was the last 3 years before he passed. Mm-hmm. But he would come out and stay with us for 2-3 weeks. He would be with Wes Bennett and Frankfurt, Illinois, and then he'd come and stay with Rich Lamoureux and I and train with us for a week or two. So we had a lot of time with Guru Ted. I loved him, guy. I was brokenhearted when I found out about him, but miss him dearly. But he was so precise. His stick work, his movement. I always say to people, when you look at Juanito Lacosta's movement, with the way he used to move, doing the Kali, when you would watch Ted, he had a lot of that movement in him. You would see that precision of footwork, and he would swing that stick around. Plus his trapping was just awesome. Yeah. The detail of his trapping was amazing. So.
So, on Facebook, right, there's always a discussion about trapping, and how it doesn't work, and
here we go.
Right? But as far as I know, none of the people in the discussions fought, right, pro in Mexico, right, have wrestled and what have you. So how, so you got to put your 2 cents in on this.
The way I see it, trapping works. It's not going to look like the traditional, reference position. It's not going to look like that.
Why is it hard for people to understand that?
See, that's the thing. It's not going to look like it. People don't understand that's a teaching position. It's just a reference position to teach from. It makes me crazy sometimes when I hear people say it. But there are the elements. You see elements of people coming in, they'll lean their head over and pop, they'll come in with that pak sao, and it works. I've used it on different people, whether it be sparring or an actual, competitive fight. Did I use it all the time? No. But there were things you could sneak in, and there's in boxing, you're not allowed to really hook the glove and do things like that. It's illegal.
Right.
But you still learn how to cuff and do things. And that's the trapping made that better.
Yeah.
Like a jiu sao, when you get in close, when you're boxing and you jam somebody, that's a really nice time to do that jiu sao. And that comes from learning the trapping.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is people don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And if it's explained, I think, and maybe more using inspiring type drills where maybe they're just off a jab and one guy's trying to pock and kind of working it that way. I think that might bring it out a little better for you if that's what you're looking for. Yeah.
I think it's definitely in the structure of the curriculum.
Yes.
So what for yourself in the development of yourself as an instructor, as a school owner, what innovations have you made? Because your friend Randy Ciordia said to everybody, tune in because you got to hear about Joe Goitia's philosophy on martial arts, right? So if I don't plumb your mind on curriculum and structure and innovation and philosophy, Randy Ciordia is not going to be happy.
Yeah. My philosophy is this. I want material that works. I want material that is going to save your life. I want material that, being in the military, I think that's one of the things. I cannot teach, you can't send Marines into combat with things that are not absolutely going to work when they need it.
Right.
And I look at it from that point of view. If I'm going to teach my students something, I have to have respect for that, knowing that, hey, if I'm showing this person this, if this person, God forbid, ever had to use this, they can use it and save their lives. And that is my main thing. What I try not to do is there was a time when I was trying to train in every martial art under the sun. I'm like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's impossible. It's impossible. I try to train in things that I know that I really need. I know I need the jiu-jitsu. So I train in that a lot. I know I need that boxing. I know and this is the thing. I know I need that original JKD because as I'm getting older, I feel that I start gravitating more to a lot of the original stuff because that BUG to the eye, when you're against a young, strong, healthy guy, mm-hmm. That's a great equalizer to have. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a great equalizer to have. That BLG to the eye and all those different things. So my way of looking at it is I want to be able to give my students something that they can use. There are people that train in martial arts for different reasons. I have a lot of military because of my background, a lot of law enforcement, because these are people that are going to possibly use the material. Most of us hopefully will never have to use the martial arts in an actual physical confrontation. But a lot of people that I train are people, when they go to work, they may be using what I'm showing them. They may have to use something. So that's why I kind of train the way I do. It's just kind of my mental, just the way I am. I think again, the Marine Corps, that's a big part of it.
You were gonna tell us a little bit about training with Lucky Lukai.
Oh yeah, Lucky. I went to Bakersfield to stay with Ted, and he goes, I got to his house, and he was staying at his mom and dad's house at the time, and his dad, you know, he was sitting there and he had a breather and everything, and he goes, Dad, this is my friend Joe Goitia from Chicago, and then he looks at me and he goes, hey man, he goes, my son says you're a boxer, and I'm like, yes sir. He's like, okay, you're coming with me tonight, and I'm like, okay. So I go to his Kali class, and you know, I love Kali. I teach it, but I'm not like Mr. Kali guy. I'm more empty hand guy. You know, I boxer, all that. So I get there and they're all doing numerata and sombratas and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of lost and fumbling over myself. I'm like, oh man. And I'm trying to keep up, and you know, it was different from what I learned before. You know, they have their patterns, and I'm just like, and I'm like, oh man. So, and a lot of guys were there at the time who were a little bit older, but there was one young guy there, and real good shape and everything. And then he goes, oh, we're gonna do some sparring, and I'm like, sparring? I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking, so he pulls out the sticks, and I'm like, oh, and so they put a helmet on me, big old gloves and everything, and then the young guy, I'm like, oh, I know I'm getting him. So I'm like, here we go. So I get in there, and we start going sparring, and you know, stick sparring, and you know, and I caught him, he caught me a couple, you know, we're beating the snot out of each other. And after the thing was over, we get done. He's like, time. He pulled us apart because, you know, we got a little aggressive now. So, and I knew that all the other guys started sparring. They were just tapping each other real easy. Me and him tried to kill each other. So I get in the car with his dad, because it was just, Ted didn't go. It was just his dad and I.
Okay.
So I had to grab his breather. I put the breather in the car for him. He comes in, he had a little truck. So we're sitting there, we're not saying a word. We're driving all the way, you know, back to his house. And about halfway back home, he looks at me and goes, your boxing saved you. And then I go, okay. And then he keeps driving me. And, you know, then we get to the house, and Ted's sitting there waiting for us. And Ted's looking at me, and his dad goes, he's coming back tomorrow with me. And I'm like, all right. And then Ted goes, hey, Dad likes you. And I'm like, really? It doesn't sound like it. I thought he was trying to kill me.
Yeah.
I thought he was trying to kill me when I was there, you know?
Yeah.
So great man, though. Really nice man.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
So.
All right. So I wanna start to close this up. I usually I ask people you know, who they think I should get on the program. So I already know that Rich Lamoureux and Wes Bennett I should get.
Yes. Those two are, you know, wow. I know you already know Randy. I'm trying to think. There's a friend of mine, David Gallegos. He trains under, oh man, you had him on a few weeks ago. He's a Jeet Kune Do powerhouse.
From where?
From the Insano Academy. I cannot think of his name. He had the mural all over. He painted all the stuff.
Oh, Mark Makita.
Mark Makita. I think he's training under Mark now, or training with Mark.
You know what? That's where, because I remember I heard the name, and I mean, well, not a common name, but many years ago, I had a student named David Gallegos, so that's why I remembered the name. I think Mark did mention his name. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. David helped me a lot, because when I was in the Marines, I didn't have a car, and he and I would go to the Insano Academy on Wednesday nights a lot, and he was my ride. And he trained too. I think he's an apprentice or an associate under Guru Dan. if I remember correctly. But I used to train a lot with David also while I was in the Marine Corps. So if we couldn't drive to Asano Academy, he and I would train, when I would get off of Marine Corps duties, things like that.
Right.
So yeah, he's a good guy. That's another guy. And now I'm like flustered. I wish I could remember other people. I know as soon as we get off, I'm like, oh, I should have said this guy. And people are gonna be like, man, Joe, you don't remember me. But yeah, those are people. Those three off the top of my head.
I want you to finish up with this. Training kids. They're the future.
Yes.
What's your how are you framing their minds and forging their bodies and souls and what have you?
We try to give them a well-rounded program. The boxing, the kickboxing, the jiu-jitsu, the self-defense aspect, like I said, the immediate action drills, things like that. I don't really, with the kids, we don't show them BOGs, things like that to the eyes, because sometimes a kid doesn't have the maturity to understand that that's something that can really injure somebody.
Right.
Obviously, a good right cross to the face can injure somebody too, but there's not that element of permanent damage, possibly.
What age do you start them at?
We start them early as 5.
Okay.
I have a couple guys that teach the kids for me.
Okay.
And then but I show them what I want them to show the kids. And we do use a ranking system with the kids, a belt system, because it's for kids. They need that goal. They need to see, and then they have certain requirements in each ranking so that they know, hey, I got it. And it's a minimum of what they should know. They should know much more than what's in each ranking, but of what they should know. They're tested on stuff like that. And they do the boxing. They in their spar a little bit. We don't let them hurt each other, or kill each other, nothing like that. But they got to know what it feels like to take a little contact, and to feel it, So.
What how many of them stay into the adult program?
Into the adult program, I'd say 10%, 20% stay. Okay. The other ones, a lot of times, once they get that black belt, they take off. The junior black belt, they'll take off. And what's funny though is I'll see a lot of those guys years later.
Right.
I could be out at a restaurant somewhere and somebody will come up to me and go, "Hey Joe, do you remember me?" And I'm like, they're grown men now, and I'm like, "No," and they're like, "You trained me. I got to, purple belt with you, and you changed my life. This and that." And that's great to always hear.
Yeah. Did you ever have any that trained with you up to departure for college?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's happened several times.
That was the first group that I had that had spent. So they spent some of them spent 10 years with me, and then went off to college.
Yeah, that's
and I was like, oh my God, this is what parents feel, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Oh, I had one. He trained me. He started about 9 years old. I still friends with him, still see him when he can, but he became a Chicago police officer, and he got hurt about a year ago, about 8 months ago. He got hurt pretty bad on duty. Yeah. And so you get a real close attachment to these people. They become more like family. It's not like a student anymore. This is family now. Yeah. And so yeah, I've had those people, and it hurts. You see everything that's going on with them, and you're like, come on, man, you can do better, or you're doing great. Keep doing this, whatever.
Now that you mentioned him being Chicago police officer, I'm thinking again. You have law enforcement people among your group.
Yes.
And Chicago law enforcement, they got the toughest job. Yeah. In this area, in this country.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Yeah. Right now our city's hurting a little bit. It's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of wish that people then on Facebook would remember that there are people like you out there making this kind of contribution in JKD, and stop the stupid arguments about who's doing it right and who's doing it. so stupid.
Have fun. You know, I don't care what martial art you're doing.
Hmm.
You know, I look at it this way. If you do Taekwondo and you love doing Taekwondo, do Taekwondo.
Exactly.
If you like to box, box. If
Yeah.
you like to do Jiu-Jitsu, do Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
But there's no reason to criticize somebody else for what they're doing. If no one's going to do something they don't like to do, if you're not going to stay in an art, I don't care how effective the art may be.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel it's fun for you and you don't like to do it, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So go to that martial art that you like, that you enjoy doing, and you're going to spend more time there.
And I also don't get this idea that, oh, well, if you did JKD, why would you do anything else? How could you possibly be interested in anything else? Well, wait, so I can only eat Indian food because I was born in Trinidad? I can't eat Italian food because there's no Italians in Trinidad?
Yeah.
I mean,
it makes no sense. You know, you can like basketball, you can like baseball, you can like football. They're all three different sports, but you still like them.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with martial arts.
Yeah.
It's just different sports. If you want to look at it from that point of view, you can look at it from a sport point of view because it's similar to sport or can be a sport. Yeah. But you look at it from that point of view and say, why would you? If you got a guy who likes to play basketball, and then he goes, oh, those football players are really stupid. No, it's what you like to do.
Yeah.
You know, or football players saw the basketball. That's stupid.
Yeah,
no, that guy likes to do basketball, you know?
It's a sad thing. And you know, my fervent hope is that, I mean, obviously Bruce Lee was such an intelligent guy. My fervent hope is that people go, if I'm not being as intelligent as I can be, I'm not honoring Bruce Lee.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, man. Anyhow, all right. Listen, Joe, thanks for your service.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Thanks for what you continue to provide. I just from looking at the website and reading the bio, I knew, man. I was like, this guy is making a difference. This guy is making a contribution. So it's an honor for me to talk to somebody like you and get to know you. We will do this again. I look forward to talking to you another time, man.
Honor is mine, sir. Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. You take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.